You need to face that, or you?
None of us need to
You're
face
just
it.
using that for.
As I said, just so I can get screenshots,
Right.
just so it's proof, because
Okay.
I haven't really interviewed many people face to face. It's just sweet. How long have you been a freelance writer?
I've been a freelance writer since 1998, which, if my math serves me right, I think is 17 years.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's a very long time. 17 years as a freelance writer. So, what age did you break into freelance writing?
I would think probably late for a lot of people. I was 35 when I wrote it. I mean, do you need me to tell you how I got, or are you going to ask me that later? How I
Well, it's up to you. You can just ask the question.
I'd wanted to be a writer for many years.
Yeah.
And really didn't know how to go about being a writer. Went to see a play in my early 20s, Stags and Hens by Willie Russell, which kind of was the spark that made me want to be a writer. I thought, oh, actually, this might be something, because I've kind of been searching for many years, doing lots of different jobs, which I didn't quite find fulfilling. But then talked to about being a writer. How do I become a writer? Didn't know how to go about it. Thought about it for a long time, writing little pieces and then never showing them to anyone, or showing them my mum or my partner. But never having the confidence to really show them or to send them out to anyone, because I didn't really know any writers and how you went about it. So I kind of got to a stage where my wife was pregnant, and I was 35 years of age, and I thought, if I never do this now, I will never do it. So I really focused and wrote a full-length play and sent it to the Everyman in Liverpool, and they liked it enough to put it on for a couple of nights as a showcase for a new writer. And miraculously, there is that thing about luck as well. There was a woman in the audience who was a producer for a soap opera on Channel 5, which was called Family Affairs, and they were looking for, it was a new show that had only just been launched. The channel had only just been launched, to be honest. And they were looking for new writers. And she came up to me after the show and she said, I liked your play. Can I take your phone number? I can't promise you anything. And I said to her, well, I'm not going to rush out and buy a new car on the strength of you taking my phone number, but just the fact that someone, obviously a professional, recognised something in my work of merit was a huge confidence boost. A week later, I was invited to London to a storyline conference. Walked into a room, 30 writers there, executive producers, script editors, storyliners. Oh my God, quite intimidating and daunting, really. And sat there for a little bit listening to people pitch ideas, and was a bit afraid to speak up, really. And then just that moment, I think because of that journey I'd been on for so long, desperately wanting to be a writer, and this was my moment. It's almost like, well, I've waited all these years for this moment. I'm not just going to sit here and say nothing. Started pitching ideas, and thankfully, because of my age as well, I'd kind of lived life.
So you had one.
So I had all that experience to draw on. And started pitching ideas, and they liked them, and a couple of them they kind of give me confidence to keep saying my bit, and I don't think I've shut up since then for the last 17 years. But yeah, that's how I got started.
So, like, for example, you said how you didn't get into freelance writing until you were 35. There's a lot of people that do like screenwriting now from an early age and trying to get their foot in the door. Would you say that obviously you continue writing and continue trying to put your foot in the door, but it's going to be a bit harder to do it from an early age? Do you reckon that could be an issue?
Not necessarily. I think it's something that, when people say to me, oh, it was all right for you saying, because literally the first thing you wrote and 2 weeks later you were writing for television. But what they don't fail to recognise until I pointed out to them is that for 10 years I was practising to be a writer. I was, and like I've said to you before, there are two ways you watch a film. You watch it as a punter and you watch it as a writer. And I was watching films as a writer. I was studying films. I was thinking, I like this film. What do I like about it? I was reading about structure. I was reading scripts continuously. So, yeah, I didn't start writing until I was 35, but I kind of done like a 10-year apprenticeship of studying film and writing a lot of stuff. And what I say to people, which is the beauty of writing, is that it's like anything. Whether you pick up a guitar, you're not going to be Eric Clapton or Jimi Hendrix straight away. It takes practice. And writing's exactly the same. It's, you have to put a lot of effort into it. So I don't think it's necessarily more difficult.
Yeah.
I think, maybe in terms of, because of my age, I had some life experience to draw on.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I'm a great believer that everyone's got a story to tell, no matter how young or old you are. And in terms of, I kind of learned I kind of self-taught and learned along the way. And, as I say, from me going to that meeting and pitching my ideas, a week later I was commissioned to write for television. And I'll hold my hands up. I didn't know the first thing about structure. I didn't know a lot, but I learned quickly and I learned the hard way. So in some ways, if you're young and you're kind of learning all those basics, you're getting the basics early on, instead of trying to find your way around. And you're being taught, hopefully by your tutors, all these things that you need to learn. Almost like, we can teach you the tools you need to become a writer. And then really it is about how much time and effort you put in. Because there comes a point where we can only talk about writing for so long, and then you have to write. And like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get it. And it takes practice, and it's not easy, but you just got to work hard at it.
Thank you very much. So, just a question, did you work part-time as a freelance writer? If so, when did you decide to go full-time?
Well, what actually happened is when I, as I say, my wife was pregnant at the time, and I'd been contracting for many years. I'd been working, I'd done lots of different jobs: taxi driver, barman, roofer.
Putting caps on aerosols.
Putting tops on roll-on deodorant.
Yes, that's the one.
But I ended up with a job which, and I'd worked on an oil refinery as well, in the tool, handing out tools to the pipe fitters and all that, which was a great place to learn. Lots of free time. Hand your tools out in the morning, write during work day. They always wondered what I was writing in the book. I never used to tell them I wanted to be a writer. But what actually happened at the time when I had my play on at the Everyman, my daughter had just been born, and I'd actually just got a job in the stores of a company that made optical fibre. And in terms of what I'd been used to job-wise, it was secure because it was a permanent job. Where I'd been doing contract work, which literally I'd get 3 months, and then I might have a couple of weeks out, or sometimes it might be a month out, and then I'd try and it was sort of like going from job to job. So when I got that job, a permanent job, and especially with my daughter just being born, it was kind of almost like, at last, a bit of security. But what happened exactly at the same time was I got asked to write for TV. So I certainly didn't want to, especially with the commitments I now had as a father and bills and whatever, I didn't want to pack this job in and saying, oh, I'm a writer now, because who knows, I could have wrote that first script and they could have said it was no good. I could have wrote a couple of scripts and they said, you know what, you're not cut out for this. And then I'd be out of work. So for 12 months, I literally kept a full-time job and I wrote for television, which wasn't easy. It was incredibly difficult. But it really, I got thrown in at the deep end. And so what I would have to do is I'd come home from work at 5 or 6 o'clock, have my tea, and then I would write till 1 or 2 in the morning. And I'd do that to get my, one of the huge things of being a writer is really important to work in this industry is not just being an accomplished writer, but having the discipline to be able to deliver deadlines on time. And if I worked I'd write till the early hours of the morning. If it meant me getting my script done and getting it in, I did it. And I mean me getting a couple of hours sleep before I got up to go and do a full day's work. That's not easy, but it's how much you want something and you have to put in. So in answer to your question, what I did is, I did that for 12 months. And it was extremely difficult, but bearing in mind, after 12 months, I'd probably written about 10 episodes. So I kind of obviously knew that they liked me enough that I'd been around for 10 months. I had the confidence to think, well, I'd also gotten quite a bit of money from writing them 10 episodes. And I thought, well, I think it's now time to do it full time. So at the end of about 12 months of doing that, I packed my job in and I became a full-time freelance writer. Well, saying that, even when I was doing a full-time job, I was a freelance writer. It was just that I was doing lots of job. In the meantime, I guess you're going to ask me a question about an agent, but in the meantime, during that 12 months, I'd actually also got myself an agent.
Which is obviously quite hard to get to, as you explained earlier in class, catch-22 situation.
Yeah, but also, so I was leaving my job as a storeman, and I was going out into the big wide world with no safety net other than having written for 10 months. But I also had the added thing that I had an agent behind me to look for work for me. So, yeah.
So obviously it was much easier when you have an agent? Or does it take a bit of load off you, kind of thing?
Well, what you've got to bear in mind is that's their job. Their job is to have contacts in the industry. My agent certainly had that. As I say, the person who gave me my break as a producer decided to be an agent. So it was quite nice that I had that kind of relationship with someone who, the person who gave me my break in TV ended up being my agent. So we kind of had that kind of relationship, which was good. But they'd been working in TV for many, many years in a number of capacities, as a storyliner, as a script editor, as a producer. And, the industry is unbelievably small. You'd be surprised. You tend to, if you work in the industry for so many years, you get to know a lot of people. And so, yes, she'd built up all these contacts with a lot of people who even, I was fairly new as well to writing. She had access to people that would, whilst I might get to know certain writers and whatever, she had access to the people who were making those decisions. At the time as well, my agency, which was her and another lady called Jill James, who was one of the executive members of BAFTA. Yeah. So obviously through that, all their contacts. So that's the strength of an agent, is that they will have all them contacts, and ultimately they'll be out there. Their sole job is to keep you in work. Because of their living depends on being able to find us work, for us to get paid, for them to get their commission. So an agent is incredibly useful to you.
Sweet. Have you ever struggled financially as a freelance writer?
I've struggled in times in them 17 years. When I first started, and the industry's changed, and this is a conversation for now as much as anything, is that when I started, which was looking at 1998, I literally, for the first few years, it was almost like I was just going from job to job. I'd done from Family Affairs. I wrote for the Cops, which was a huge thing in my career, because the Cops, because it was critically acclaimed and really respected in the industry and won BAFTAs and Royal Television Awards. Because of that opened doors for me. And because I was associated with that show, it got me invited into the BBC. People wanted to meet you and wanted to talk to you. Did you have any ideas? But also what they like to do is, while they're working on your ideas, you will write for some of their shows. So I ended up on Holby City. So I was writing for Holby City. Sorry, what was your question? I forgot.
That's right. Have you struggled financially?
Oh yeah, so struggled financially. So then the first few years, I was literally, I was going from job to job, which was great. I'd write for Holby, and from beginning to end, it'd take a couple of months, and you get paid well, and then you'd done another, and then I remember saying, well, I've kind of done a couple, and it's been quite intense for 2 or 3 months. I'm going to have a month off, which is kind of nice, and not have to worry about money because you've been paid okay. Certainly in terms of what I've been used to, from the type of jobs that I did, to be getting paid this way. And for the first few years, it was kind of like that. I was, picking and choosing when I worked, and had them kind of shows to, the work was out there. One of the things I always did, and this was a personal choice, I never took too much on. I know some writers took a lot on because you kind of, maybe greed's not the right word, but you know, when someone's dangling money, you know, at the time, I mean, at the time looking at Holby City, I don't know, when I wrote for it, might have been looking at 16 grand to get paid for doing it, which in 1998, even today's standards, is good money for a couple of months' work. Bearing in mind royalties as well, like, you know, I still get little checks from Holby City, which I wrote, you know, all them years ago, 16 years ago. I still occasionally get a couple of checks a year for royalties from Holby City, which is nice.
Must be nice.
So, the answer to your question, you know, at first it was okay, but then the industry's changed a lot, because with reality TV now, the amount of reality TV shows that are about is kind of cut down on the drama content. So what you were starting to notice, there was less and less work out there. Now, what also I kind of did, I decided also is that going into, I decided I wanted to write for a long running show. So it kind of wasn't, you know, into one show and then looking for the next one. You kind of, once you're in on a long running show, for instance like a soap opera like Brookside or Hollyoaks, as long as your face fits and you're delivering scripts on time and of the right quality, you're kind of there until someone pushes you out, and it's an opportunity to make really good money. And I did for a period, you know, and then the first few years were very comfortable and hell of a lot more than what I used to earn. But in terms of making proper money, serious money, was when I was writing for soap opera. Because you're looking at the time, 6,500 an episode, writing an episode a month, sometimes 2 a month. If you kind of add that up, it's a hell of a wage. What I would say to you is that it's, I hate to use the word tough, because, you know, from a guy who's put balls on, roll on deodorants, I know what I'd rather be doing. But, you know, you are well paid, but, you know, there is a lot of work involved with that. You know, you were at the beck and call of the producers. You know, you might have planned to do something the weekend, and you get that phone call, there's something happened with the script, or something's changed in the story, we need that script by Monday. You can't say, oh, I'm going to the beach, or I'm going for, you know what I mean? You kind of need to deliver. So, yeah, you're paid well, but you also need to be, you need to deliver, and you know, they get their pound of flesh in a sense. In terms of, you know, you kind of, because that kind of works ongoing all the time, so you kind of buffeted from that. And then I came out of that, and I think 2008, I think also bearing in mind because of the, in terms of what I wanted to do, because ultimately I think all writers, when we all start out, we want to write our own stuff. You know, we end up doing other stuff, you know, writing for other shows, and that's not to say I didn't appreciate writing for other shows and it paid well. And I always prided myself on that. Whatever show I wrote for, I always gave 100%. But ultimately, I didn't start out as a writer to write Holby City or Hollyoaks or Mersey Beat, or any of them shows I wrote for. I didn't set out, that wasn't my goal, my ambition. My ambition was to write my own stuff. So in 2008, after literally 10 years of writing for other people, I kind of thought, well, now's me, I want to try and write some stuff. And it kind of took 12 months out, really. And unfortunately, I had enough money in terms of it being paid well all in previous years to take 12 months out. And if I'm perfectly honest, it was kind of a time where I wrote a film script, and I wrote another idea, and I had a few ideas sort of kind of getting developed here and there, the BBC, at ITV, and you're getting paid to develop. You know, but you certainly, it's not like a living wage, but you're certainly getting what you're doing. But that was kind of ticking me over. But I wanted to write a film script, I wanted to at least give it a go, because for 10 years I'd been doing all these other shows. And so I kind of wanted to give it a go. And then it come to a point when I'd finished my script, and then unfortunately 2008 was the financial crash, wasn't it? And basically I remember going into a meeting, and a really positive meeting about an idea I had, and then coming home and on the TV that night was about the global financial markets had crashed. And the result is that look, nothing's going to be getting made for this foreseeable future. So it kind of, I realised that my ideas for the time being weren't going to be going anywhere, and I kind of needed to get back in work. And bearing in mind, because I've been writing for soaps for probably about 5 years, 5.5, 6 years, and in that time the landscape had changed in terms of TV, how many reality, you pick up a TV schedule now and you look at it and there's very little original drama. A lot of it's these reality shows, or so you kind of straight away, and at the time there was a lot of like Brookside that had got finished up, The Bill, Family Affairs. These were like 3 shows that were literally, hugely useful for writers that at work. So kind of that was a lot less work. So the landscape had kind of changed in them years that I'd been writing. So after writing my film script, and obviously these ideas were going nowhere for the foreseeable future, I kind of like, right, I need to start work now. And then that's when my agent started trying to get me work. And I went for a show, and I waited about 6 weeks for anything. Nothing had come up, so it was like, a little bit worried, but something will come along. Because the thing is, the trouble is, as a writer, when I'd said, right now I need to start work, and some of them savings that had kind of dwindled, it's like, right, I need to start doing something. My agent was out there actively looking for me to get back into TV, and nothing was happening. Now, what I've learned in hindsight, what I should have done, was kind of like, well, you know what? I'm not proud. I'll go back. I'll work as a barman. Do you know what I mean? But kind of by doing that, I mean, I wouldn't have any hesitation doing that now. But at the time, it was kind of like a pride thing. For 10 years, I'd worked as a writer, and I used to have a recurring dream. And my recurring dream, because I used to work in a car factory where I used to just put headlights on cars. And I used to, as a writer, I used to have a recurring dream, and my dream was I was back in the car factory, and people were saying to me, "Didn't you used to be a writer?" So, whichever way you want to analyse that, but it was kind of like a pride thing. So for me to say, well, actually, it's a bit difficult now. 6 weeks have gone by, still haven't got a chance of a job. I went for an interview for the job, and then that didn't happen. So that was a little bit worrying. It's almost like one of the first jobs I'd ever gone for as a writer and didn't get for whatever reason. And kind of before you know it, another couple of weeks had gone past. And really, with hindsight, I should have just thought, well, I'll do anything. I know people that could have gone labour and all this and that just to keep the money ticking over. And I kind of didn't. It was kind of like a pride thing. And before you know it, another month had passed. And so financially, I kind of did struggle. But it was kind of like a pride thing that I just didn't want to go out there and do something. I was thinking, well, no, I'm a writer. It was almost like if I do that, my nightmare has become a reality. That dream of being back in it, So it's kind of like a personal thing. So the answer to your question is but there were kind of reasons for that. And I think, in all honesty, the majority of freelance writers, at some point in their careers, especially when you've written for as long as I have, at some point in their career, they will reach a point where it isn't, and the trouble is, and this is true, and I know this from a lot of writers, if you've been used to a certain wage and you've got used to living on that, and you've got used to having them 2 or 3 holidays a year and eating out 3 or 4 times a week, which I certainly did as a writer, which is great, and especially when you've never been used to that, you know, when you've been in a situation previously, for me being a writer, when you're having to live from hand to mouth, when your bills are coming in, you've just got enough to cover it, and you get to this position where you don't even have to think about money, and you're able to go and spend it on your family and have a couple of holidays a year and stay in nice hotels, not have to think twice about money. That's a fun, you know, I'm really privileged that I've been in that position, and it's an amazing feeling to have. But when it's kind of taken away from you, you're used to living that lifestyle. You're kind of used to living that way, and it's very hard to suddenly go back to watching your money. And I speak to a lot of writers who've all experienced this, and we still think we're on that money, and we kind of live like that. And you've got to be very careful. And you know, I think, if I'm being honest, I've been caught out myself. You know, when you just. But the problem is as well is that it's not unrealistic to keep on living as if you're still on 60, 70, 80 grand a year, because all it takes is a phone call, you know. And we've all had, as a freelance writer, I certainly have, we've had them phone calls where literally you just get a phone call, agents, so-and-so's looking for a writer. So you kind of, work's not coming in, and you're still spending money like you used to have that money, even though you haven't got it now. But you're kind of doing it in the back of your mind thinking, well, I could get a phone call tomorrow. Well, why worry? Life's too short. So I think you can get caught out. So, but you know, so in answer to your question, I have, and I think at some point in their careers, all writers will experience the hard times, and I think that's not a bad thing, because I think it, you know, makes you appreciate what you have. It's hard once you've had it not to have it, but it also it's a spur, you know, and I think. I think you should want to write because it's something that inside you really want to do, and you're passionate about writing. But also, let's be honest about it, money's a huge motivation, because money buys you freedom. Money allows you to do things in life that you normally can't do. So don't be ashamed of sometimes doing things for the money. You know what I mean?
And money also buys you a PS4. Don't worry about that. I was supposed to ask you a question or something else there. I can't remember what it was going to be. Oh yeah, that was it. So obviously we know that you're a writer that writes for like TV and film. Have you ever like ventured into other kind of mediums? Is that right? Other media. Have you ever ventured there?
No, I've done. Well, what I've done is I've had the first two things I wrote were, one was put on the Liverpool Everyman, which was a full-length play. And the second thing I wrote, I won a competition which was put on at the Liverpool Playhouse, which was a 30-minute play. That's my experience of theatre. And because of the story I told you, I ended up working in TV. I wrote a couple of film scripts which have kind of done the rounds, but nothing's come of them. But that happens, so you kind of just, you know, you go away and you write another one, and you just hope. In terms of theatre, I'm planning on writing a play, and the thing is, I kind of didn't really know what I was doing when I wrote the first two, but I kind of know what I'm doing now. So I'm looking forward to being able to write something with the experience I've got now behind that. You know what I mean? Radio, I've wrote one radio play which was passed to the BBC, and I developed that for a short while, but nothing kind of ever come of that, which is kind of. It's not a problem, because that is actually going to be the basis of my theatre. So ideas are never wasted, but if they're not used somewhere, they'll always be used somewhere else.
Because I was what I asked was, I think, because obviously I've contacted loads of freelance writers through email to ask them, and a lot of them advise that you must be willing to write for anything and everything kind of thing, just to get the bills in, and obviously to like build up a portfolio and everything. I think
it's exactly right. As a writer, you know, at the end of the day, we need money to live. So you might not set out to be a radio writer, but you know, it pays the bills. But also, you will learn a hell of a lot in radio, and it's a good medium to get in. So you know, you're learning while you're there. You're gaining experience. You know, sometimes we take steps back to move forward or to the side, and you know, we've all got a goal, and you know, it's okay to aim for that. But as a writer, I just think importantly, and like I've said to you before many times, it doesn't matter where your work is being seen, just as long as it's seen, whether that's TV, radio, or theatre.
And what would your advice be to those? What would your advice be to those who are thinking about going freelance?
I think it's being realistic in terms of, well, importantly, you need to get your work out there. But that thing that I said to you is that there might be times where nothing's coming in, so you have to be prepared to do other things. Because we all need to live and we all need to pay the bills, and so being able to do that, but never losing that, realizing that to be a writer, to be a freelance writer, you've got to. There's kind of no security. You're only as good as your last script, and so you have to give it 100%. And you have to put the effort in, but you've just got to, it's what we love doing, and you've just got to work hard at it. So I think it's just always making sure you give 100%, because along the way there'll be times when you'll get, I hate to use the word, but it's true, you'll get sacked off a show. And sometimes it's nothing to do with your writing. Sometimes it's to do with politics. That's another story. But I think if you give 100%. That for whatever reason you ever get finished off a show, you kind of know when you've done your best. Do you know what I mean? And it's kind of, I can kind of live with myself then. Do you know what I mean? Does that sum that question up?
Yes, it does. Yeah. That's all this information is just great because it gives us an insight into what it's like to be a freelance writer for someone who's quite experienced within the field. Because obviously mine's about becoming a freelance writer, but I'm trying to go through the steps putting out a query letter to agents that accept unsolicited material, and then also doing writing. For example, I'm writing scripts, I'm writing radio plays. I've written songs, which I've never really done before, and they're hopefully going to get published. So it's like I'm getting an idea that you need to write for quite a lot of mediums and that kind of stuff.
Exactly. I think because the question is, everyone always asks me, how do you get into the industry? Well, there's 1,000,001 ways to get into the industry, and the only way is by getting your work out there somewhere. It doesn't matter where, as long as it's out there and it's getting seen. So,
as I said, you've kind of given me a bit of inspiration there when you said earlier about how you worked a full-time job until 5, 6, you'd come back, have a tea, and then you'd work till 2, 3. One of the main things that I'm kind of struggling with at the moment is time management. Because I wrote down about 2 weeks before the deadline for that the 13th of Feb competition that Tim talked about in class. And it came to the 13th of Feb and I was just like, oh crap, I have not made any time to write this kind of story. So I think that's kind of given me a bit more inspiration to kind of be more disciplined as a writer and make time to write competitions. Even if it's just if I write 100 words or 1,000 words a day, if I set a target, then hopefully I can achieve that.
And it's true, as a writer, going back to the question about advice for freelance, you could be the greatest writer in the world. If you haven't got the discipline to sit down and write and deliver on time. I've met loads of great writers along the way who were unable to work in the industry because they haven't got that discipline, or they've left the script till the last minute and what they've delivered isn't their best and they've been let go. And you can't do that. You can't shortchange people. And you need to. And that lesson that I learned right at the beginning of my career is but in fairness, that's the way I am as a person. I'm very disciplined. When I do a job, I do it to the best I can. But it's an important thing that you need that discipline. And it's taught me, if I can write for TV, but do a full-time job and have a young daughter at home as well, I kind of really, once I've done that, I can do anything really. So it served me well along the years,
Well, obviously this question is on the list, but I've always wanted to kind of ask this question, what made you want to become a lecturer to teach screenwriting?
Because of that journey I've kind of been on. To me, this isn't a job. This isn't a job. I know what it's like in your position, wanting to be a writer and being in the dark, not knowing, really understanding about writing and how to go about it and whatever. I just find it incredibly fulfilling. It's not a job to me. I actually enjoy it. And when you've done the amount of jobs that I've done, and jobs that I found soul destroying and unfulfilling, because when I was writing, I said to myself, at some point in my career, I want to be a lecturer, because I want to be able to, because I've been in your position, and I want to be able to kind of give you the tools to try and achieve what I've achieved, because to do a job that you love, I made a living as a writer, you know what I mean, and I make a living as a writer, and because of that, that's like, you know, that saying, when you do something you love, you never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Well, I've had that opportunity for that happen in my life, and I know that changed my life, literally changed me as a person. There's this huge weight off my shoulders to achieve something. You know, when we start getting deep, it kind of gave me this self-confidence. I was confident before, but you kind of think, you know, what am I here for? You know, I can't do anything. You know, I wasn't good at maths. I wasn't particularly good at school. Finally found something that I could do. So I know how important that is. So for me to be in a position to be able to try and help people do that, that's a privilege to me. And incredible. And you might not think it when I'm standing up in front of you, but it is to me that I'm privileged to be there, and how much enjoyment I get being able to try and help you in some way to help you achieve your goal, because I know how great a feeling that is to, you know, to have once you get there.
So, well, I can safely say that we can tell that you're passionate when you're teaching lessons. Like, even when you're strict, like for people coming in late for today, like you make a joke out of it in the end just to kind of like lessen the tone. Like, the message has got across, and I think that's kind of like what we like to see, is that you want to help us out as much as possible, but also you have that laid back approach that we can kind of like relate to that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, the thing is, what you've got to remember is where I've come from, what I've done. Then I've been a writer. I also did an MA a few years ago, so I know what it's like to be a student. And now I'm teaching, so I kind of know it from every different angle. And because of that insight and experience, it helps me. You know, I kind of know what it takes to get to where you need to go. And the joy for me is trying to help people on that journey. You know, and as I say, it's not a job to me. It's not a job. I absolutely love it. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, well, I can see that we're running out of time, because this room will be filled with students soon. So the only last question really I have to ask is there anything else that you want to add to the topic of freelance writing?
Never give up. You've got, as I said to you, there's different things about being in advice. You know, there's going to be tough times along the way. You're going to get a lot of rejections. Never think that you've made it. Never get carried away. You're only as good as your last script. Don't write for the show and think that's me. I'm done. You need to treat people with respect. You need to work hard, because the industry is very small, and if you get a reputation, you'll find yourself out of work. So ultimately, it's that thing is you can't give up and always give 100%. And I think if you're doing them things and you're working hard at your craft and you're putting the time in and you're disciplined, you know, you'll make a career of it. But you can't try and shortchange people. Not just in writing, in any walk of life, because you'll get found out eventually, and you might get away with it for a couple of months, and you might get away with it for 12 months or 18 months, great. But you won't make a career of it, because you'll get found out along the way. So you just need to work hard, and just remember that, you know, if this is the thing that drives you, if this is your passion, how fortunate you are to be able to make a living doing that. Never forget that.
Okay, sweet. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Okay, mate.
Time, because the guys just outside as well.